Hi friends, you are listening to Bhakta Pojana. We are discussing about the early church's interaction with the culture. The Christian difference in 1 Peter, we see, it was rooted in an eschatological hope. Chapter 1 verse 3 and 4 says, He has given us new birth into a living hope, an inheritance that can never perish, spoil, or fade, kept in heaven for you. We have a living hope, an inheritance that can never perish. It will not be spoiled, it will not fade, because it kept in heaven for us. Only the perfect culture is reserved for heaven. But as long as we are here on earth, we interact with the cultures. It was sustained by an ecclesiastical reality. In the early church, the church was sustained by an ecclesiastical reality. But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people belonging to God, that you may declare the praises of Him who called you out of darkness into this wonderful light. So the early church preserved a culture that can transform others. They lived a distinct life and they hoped for the future. It was defined positively rather than negatively. When it says we are strangers and aliens, it is not negatively to interact with the cultures of this world, but in a positive notion that we need to transform the cultures that we encounter. Therefore, prepare your minds for action. Be self-controlled. Set your hope fully on the grace to be given you when Jesus Christ is revealed. Be holy in all you do. When there is so much perversion in the culture that we live in, God expects that we should be holy so that people who look at us, they may understand the significance of the Christian culture. Christ suffered for you, leaving you an example that you should follow in His footsteps. We need to follow in the footsteps of Christ in the context of culture. Abstain from sinful desires which war against your soul. Live such good lives among the pagans. When there is so much perversion in culture, casteism is a culture. Caste, dowry is a culture in South India especially. The bribing is a part of culture, especially in India. But Christians are not distinct from this. And a matter of fact, the Christian community is also very much influenced by this bribing culture. And there are Christians who take bribe more than the Hindus. There are Christian employers that continue to practice the old sinful nature, the sinful cultural nature of this bribing. It was lived with the Gentiles and respect. But in your heart, set apart Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope you have, but do this with gentleness and respect. We need to do any change, any interaction with a culture with gentleness and respect. Because we need to respect all cultures, we need to respect all people, and we need to respect all people of different faiths. Because Bible says that we need to respect them. And we need to speak the truth with gentleness, not with arrogance. The alien status of Christianity changed in the 4th century when Constantine became a Christian and legalized the Christian religion. Theodosius made Christianity the religion of the empire in 380, and the church grew sixfold. There the problem started. They have not maintained the distinctiveness from the corrupted culture, but the corruption has come inside the church. It became an established church, demonstrated by culture and allied with the status quo. It became a non-missionary church, preoccupied with own welfare and maintenance. Instead of interacting with the people of others' faiths, it became a non-missionary church. And it started having the preoccupied mindset. Instead of looking at the welfare of the others, it started looking at its own welfare and maintenance. It became a powerful and privileged church made up of the educated, powerful, and the rich. It became culturally active but lost its counter-cultural status. It developed a Christian culture and lost its uniqueness of counter-cultural stance. And it developed a Christian culture which is filled with sin and corruption. And matter of fact, let me tell you, my friends, even there is no perfect culture. We think Christian culture is something holy and divine. No, not at all. Whether it is a Hindu culture or an Islamic culture or a Christian culture or any other religious culture, all cultures are marred by sin. Every culture has its own weaknesses. With the downbreak of Christendom and the dawn of enlightenment, the established authority of the church was rejected and Christianity was pushed to the margins of culture. So what happened in the course of time, the Christian culture is also marred by sin because it developed a culture instead of having a counter culture, interacting with the culture. It's lost its unique identity. The church was replaced by the center of a belief in the individual and scientific reasoning. And the human reason, disciplined by the scientific method was seen as the only reliable avenue to the truth. Authority and tradition were rejected. You cannot question. And it was the time for the downfall of the Christian church. Truth claims that could be validated by reason were accorded the high place of facts, and those that could not were placed in the optional category of values. Whatever the church said was understood as the truth. There is no value outside the church. The modern Christian church accepted its role in the private realm, operating alongside the power of a scientifically established culture. As a chaplain to society, it took care of the religious needs of its members, but it did not challenge it. Instead of challenging the corruption outside, it accepted the corruption. The claims of the gospel were relegated to the private and preferential realm of personal opinion and values. The church in post-modernity renewed mission. As the modern view breaks down, the church faces an identity crisis. Today, the church faces an identity crisis in this postmodern culture. Shifting sensibilities, less rational, more relational. Many religious options, of which it is least. a diminished role. This crisis actually presents an opportunity. Of course, any crisis can become an opportunity if we can interact in a way that God interacts. The church in the West has a chance to break out of its cultural capacity, regain its missionary self-consciousness, and re-engage culture in a way that is both culturally productive and counterculture. And understand, as we continue to understand the dynamics of faith and culture, we see today in the postmodern context, everything is subjective. The pre-World War II is an age of conquest. The gospel and Western culture were bound up in the concept of Christianity. The gospel and culture were bound up in the concept of Christianity. What is gospel and what is culture? Culture and the gospel were interlinked with the Western Christianity. As a result, when this gospel came to the Eastern countries, they wrapped their Western cultural context, which became irrelevant, especially in the context of India. Missions was understood as a religious conquest that resulted in the Christianizing of heathen nations. What is mission? Mission is something that bringing God's kingdom, interacting with people where we see justice, peace, and integrity, where people can know God intimately, building intimate relationship with God. That identity was lost. Mission was understood as a religious conquest. Mission came to establish their own Western Christianity rather than helping people to understand God in a way that they can understand. As a matter of fact, some scholars said gun and the gospel have come in the same ship. The colonial conquering mindset snipped into the church. Converts were expected to reject their culture along with their former religion and take on a Christian way of life. Even what to wear and what to eat, how to behave, everything was dictated. And the new converts were forced to reject their culture along with their former religion. And as a matter of fact, now I'm wearing this shirt. I don't think so. If some pious pastors see, they may start accusing me, because there are some Sanskrit letters in it. So culture is neutral, but this is a problem. Post-War II, the age of contextualization. In this post-World War II, the people try to understand the need of contextualization. This is the age of contextualization. We can divide this church history as an age of. Due to decolonization and the building up of independent nations, there was increasing sensitivity to the value of other cultures. Sometimes circumstances forces us to think as God thinks. Due to decolonization and the building of independent nations, there was increasing sensitivity to the value of other cultures. India got independence in 1947. And after the independence, Indian government restricted foreign visas, especially the missionary visas. As a result, what happened? These missionaries started thinking how best they can relate with the people of other faiths. And prior to that, people have not given their minds and ears to understand